So my first question for you is about your playing career. So you played at UNC Wilmington, went to two NCAA tournaments. How was that whole experience?
Well, I think it was a fantastic experience because we won. And I think that when I was kind of coming out of high school, that was important to me. At that time, I knew that I wanted to play in the NCAA tournament. Someone like myself growing up around basketball, I saw the highs and the lows that came with that. And I wanted to have an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. I wanted to have an opportunity to go to a program that I felt, could give me the best chance to do that, as well as get better, as well as contribute to the success. So it was, I had good schools that were looking at me, but at the end of the day, I was a low major, mid-major, recruit, and had a relationship with the head coach there, Coach Jerry Wainwright. And it was interesting at the time. I was going there, and the plan was to redshirt my first year, so I actually liked that. And thought, I'd play more as a 22, 23-year-old as I would as an 18, 19-year-old. And that plan got kind of derailed early due to some injuries and an academic issue with a couple guys on our team. And but nonetheless, it was a great experience and one that I think of, often and fondly.
Who did you guys play in the NCAA tournament when you were a player?
So we made it twice. Our first year that we made it while I was on the team, we went to Sacramento, California, and played Southern Cal in the first round. Actually won the game.
Nice.
It was a heck of a game, and then lost to Indiana, who had Jared Jeffries, and eventually made it to the national championship game where they lost to Maryland.
Okay.
That year, actually, Indiana beat us in the round of 32, and then came to Lexington, Kentucky, and beat Duke in the Sweet 16. And then, like I said, eventually made it to the national championship game. My junior year, we were very, very good. Had a great team, had an experienced team, mainly seniors and juniors, with two of the kind of program's best players, probably even to today. And I think we were a 11 seed, so it was a 6-11 game, and actually got beat on a half-court shot. Drew Nicholas beat us in Maryland. Maryland was the defending champions, obviously, coming into the game, and Drew Nicholas hit a kind of a runner right across half court, to beat us. But it was my senior year, we actually had a lot of injuries, had some, issues, and lost a ton of close games. So it was, but nonetheless, a tremendous team career. Can't say the same for my personal accolades, but team-wise, it was great.
Okay, so you have a great college career, and then you get into coaching right away. Did you GA or what did you do that first year after graduation?
Nate, I was very lucky, coming out of Wilmington. I knew, and I did not have, I'm not going to, say that I had tons of options, to continue my playing career.
Okay.
And quite honestly, I don't even know that I explored them. But I did explore a couple opportunities in basketball, and one, came open at the university, at Elon University. And it was one that, at the time I could afford. It was $15,000 and no health benefits. But the great thing was I was an assistant coach. We didn't even have a director of operations. We didn't have a film coordinator. That was all really my job as the third assistant. I did all the travel. I did all the film, and then still had scouts. I had player development responsibilities, and it was probably the best first job that I could have ever had. at that time, regardless of what it paid or what it didn't pay, or, there was a lot more haves than have-nots, when I looked at it. And I did that. I stayed there for 4 years, had a different, kind of set of responsibilities each year. Like I said, there was a couple of years I did player development with our guards. There was a couple that I did with the big men. So my 4 years there were fantastic in my development, really as a young coach. And even, as I guess start my, I don't even know what year this is. This would be my just shy of 20th year, out of being a player. In general, I look back on those 4 years as some of my best ones.
Yeah. I'm curious because as someone that's obviously trying to get into college coaching, how did you kind of, break into the scene, or, were you connecting yourself with other coaches, or was there someone you knew that helped you land that Elon job, or how did that go down?
Well, I think, once my playing time was over there in March, I really sat down with my coach, Brad Brunell at the time, and a couple of assistant coaches that were on our staff, and really just try to look back at some connections, that I had either from, my time as a high school player, whether it was guys in the league, coaches that were in the Colonial Athletic Association that we played in, and really just, at that point, it was a lot more of handwritten notes. It was a lot more, email was kind of starting to be a bigger thing, but it was a lot more picking up the phone, trying to get guys' phone numbers, or handwritten notes, or kind of even form letters, reaching out. I was ready to do anything at that point in terms of as a coach. And the head coach at Elon was the guy named Ernie Nestor, who was an assistant coach at Wake Forest when I was coming out of high school, where I grew up, in Winston-Salem, and had a relationship with Coach Nestor, and the staff that was there under, Coach Dave Odom. My father worked at Wake Forest. So, when it was time to come out, I reached out to him, and I knew that, as interesting as it might sound, I knew that they could afford me, and there's not a lot of people that can take a job for $15,000 and no health benefits, trying to get in. But for me, a young college kid, that was a raise, for me. So it was a lot of networking. It was a lot of, just telling your story. I think when you're that age, you have to, and really even at my age now, I think anytime you want something, you've got to go after it. And that's really what I did. And it's really kind of how I've gone after any job, whether it was a high school head coaching job or, my first opportunity here at Kentucky. It was, the way that I went after it was kind of the same way that I've gone after any job. And that was to show that I'm a team player, that I have passion for the opportunity, and really will do anything that the head coach, would need me to do.
Right. So you had stops at a couple high schools and Elon, and then you get to Kentucky. What was that first year in your as the, I think, director of analytics, right?
Yeah, no, that was my first year. Yeah, when I came here, my title was the director of basketball analytics. It was a lot of film breakdown with Coach Calipari. It was a unique team in that there was such high expectations, and we had some guys come back that maybe weren't expected to come back from the previous year's team, along with a recruiting class that had, Carl Towns, Devin Booker, Trey Lyles, and Tyler Eulis was in that group as well. So it was a team that we really had to kind of create kind of a plan of how everyone was going to succeed and how everyone was going to eat. And a little bit of that fell on me and Coach Cal, to where we created statistics, or we created kind of a day-to-day platform to see who was competing, who was achieving, you know, and kind of to keep those guys motivated through a season, ultimately where we won 38 straight games.
Okay, so that was the 38 in 1 year was your first year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Not a bad start.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm curious, you named all those guys, Tyler Ulis, Devin Booker, Cat, all those guys. What's it like to have coached them at Kentucky and then see them play in the NBA, and not even to mention Tyler Hero, you know, Bam, all those guys?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the latter guys there that you mentioned, I actually coached.
Right.
You know, my first couple of years, you know, I was in more of an administrative role off the floor. I was around them, obviously, and had dealings with them. But it's great. I mean, I think with what Coach Cal has set up here, to where, you know, it's a culture of hard work. It's a culture of selflessness. It's a culture of, you know, being a servant leader. That's really from the top down. And it's great to see young people as they come into kind of Lexington and live out their dreams. As they leave, they continue to succeed, but also be great teammates. I think you see that with Bam and Tyler, you know, and the team that the Heat have, you know, assembled. It's with our guys. I would say the same thing about Anthony. They're at the in Los Angeles. Is, you know, Anthony's a guy that wants to win, and I think that's what you'll see over the next couple of weeks. Is you know, a group of young guys that are, you know, team oriented, that, you know, want to win. Right.
Having coached all these guys, all these pros, obviously they all have great work ethics. Who are some guys that stand out to you that were always in the gym, you know, always getting shots up and getting work in?
I mean, we could talk, you know, really for the next 30 minutes about that.
Right.
And we've had a group of guys that they come here, and like I said, starts in recruiting. I mean, the culture is of hard work. The culture is to take what you want, and nothing's promised, nothing's given. And you know, we've had guys that have done it in different ways. You know, each guy's path is different, similar to everyone's coaching path.
Yeah,
you know, it's different. Sometimes you got to get a little bit of luck. Sometimes, you know, a lot of hard work goes in to success, and a lot of times it's a little bit of both. You know, I think you look at Tyler Hero, who came here and spent countless hours in the gym in the mornings. He would be the first guy to practice. He would typically get some shots up after practice, and oftentimes would be back in the evenings. You know, sometimes to get a workout in. You know, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was another guy that came here and was the lowest ranked recruit, you know, in his recruiting class, and didn't start, you know, for the first 8-9 games of the season, and ultimately came in to his own after Christmas break, and really drove the team to the Sweet 16. You know, I think you look at even a guy like PJ Washington, you know, who came back for a second year, totally transformed his body, totally changed how he viewed basketball on a day-to-day basis, on a play-to-play basis. And then you look at Emmanuel Quickly, who came in and was Player of the Year in our league last year, and was the heart and soul of a group of young people. And I mean, we could talk for days, I mean, about guys, and but I think it's the culture that Coach Cal has set here. It's the demands that he puts on our young people every single day, and guys come here to get better. That's the bottom line. They don't come here to start. They don't come here to be a one and done. They come here to get better, and I think that's why it works.
Yeah. How is it working for Coach Cal?
It's demanding. I think it's the same thing that I would say, or our young guys would say about playing for Coach Cal. But I know that he wants the best, you know, for our guys, for the young people that play for us. So he demands a lot out of our staff. Professionally, I enjoy that, just because you know, I want to be great, and I want to be great for our players. I want to be great as as an individual. I want to be great as a coach. And, he challenges you. He's always thinking of new ideas, and he wants people around him thinking of new ideas as well. And I think there's ultimately growth when you have that mindset, whether, if you are comfortable being uncomfortable, similar to a player,
right,
you're going to get better.
Yeah. So you mentioned all of the 38-1 year you were on the staff, and I can't even imagine how many amazing games you've been a part of. But I'm curious, are there any any games that stick out in your head as far as atmosphere or being great to be a part of?
Well, I mean, it's interesting, Nate. I mean, I could see a little bit of this, from you guys' standpoint at Winthrop. I mean, you're a big game on everybody's schedule. When you, especially in the Big South, I mean, you're going to play in front of the biggest crowds on the road. That's what we deal with in the SEC. Mm-hmm. We've had fun games. Obviously, every year we play in the Champions Classic. We play in the CBS Sports Classic. The one that always jumps out, was Malik Monk scoring 47 points against North Carolina in Las Vegas. It was an incredible game. But I mean, atmospheres, I mean, we've played in some good ones, great ones, really. I mean, we've played in Fog Allen Fieldhouse against Kansas. We've played at West Virginia, which was an incredible atmosphere in the Big 12 Challenge. This past year, we played at Texas Tech, which was incredible. I mean, they were camping out for 2 days. They were giving away beer. I mean, it was wild. But I mean, I think even when you roll over to Thompson Bowling and play Tennessee every year, it's a big rivalry. But it's, we're everybody's Super Bowl, and that's a big reason why guys come here. They come here to get prepared, for the NBA, and it being a big game every single night, it being an important, half, it being an important timeout to timeout or possession to possession. And that's what we have to get through to our young guys, is every play is important, every rep's important. And, I think the quicker that we figure that out, the quicker that we take off as a team.
Mm-hmm. So I've talked to a couple coaches, and one thing I've asked them is, obviously with this pandemic going on, how has recruiting shifted for you guys? What are some different tactics or ways you have to reach prospects?
Well, I think it's the same for everyone. I mean, I think you're still creating relationships, and that's how you're successful in this business, whether it's as a young guy like yourself wanting to get into coaching, or once you get into coaching, recruiting, and the same thing I would say is as reaching young people that you coach. You have to have a relationship with them. You have to, kind of use the old adage, they don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's something that we all have heard, and it's a great reminder daily to all of us. But I think that it's the same across the board. I mean, you got Zooms, you got calls, you got texting. I mean, you're just losing the face-to-face.
Right.
I think it's a little bit more difficult to evaluate than it is to recruit. And I think when you separate those two, that's where you have to have a method. You have to have good people that are on your staff. You have to have folks that have good connections that you trust. And ultimately, you've got to get a little bit lucky, I think. Mm-hmm. That, especially at the lower levels where, you're recruiting more numbers than you are here at the highest level. And I think we have a pretty good feel for who the great talent is, but, who is really built for us. And who really wants the challenge, who wants to accept the challenge.